Chapter 30. Captivity Day 29. Carly. Before ending the call last night, she invited Strawberry to sit on her lap to meet her boys, who were still getting used to the idea of having two mothers and a new friend. After finally disconnecting, they'd gone to bed and talked until dozing off. Despite her exhaustion, Carly hadn't slept well. Her back, hips, and neck were a little sore, and the base of her tails had gone numb. Whenever she tried to get more comfortable, Strawberry's sleeping body pursued her relentlessly. She really was a cuddly bed partner, but her mattress was terrible. It was no wonder why she'd enjoyed sleeping in Carly's bed so much. Strawberry seemed so hypersexual at first impression. She really enjoyed sex and spent a lot of time with it on her mind, but there was a lot more to her than that. She loved touching, snuggling, and being held. She was soft and fragile, nothing like cyanide, but Carly was attracted to her. It was just different. The last time she was with her Tejmare, the notion of loving other people had been brought up. It seemed strange and alien to Carly at the time, but she'd come to understand that it was far too complex of an emotion to convey with a simple term. She couldn't help but wonder, when Strawberry told Carly she loved her, what did that mean to her? She was half asleep at the time. She might have just been talking in her sleep. That was 6 days ago, and neither of them had mentioned it since. Regardless of any truth or meaning behind those words, they had led Carly down a path of introspection. If Lilac didn't come up with a resolution soon, Strawberry was just going to have to decide what hotel they'd be staying at. Another night in this bed was not an option. Soft light filtered through the window next to the apartment door. She ran her fingers through Strawberry's hair and whispered, "Wake up." Strawberry grumbled unhappily. "Come watch the sunrise with me," Carly said while sliding out of bed. "I was comfy," Strawberry complained. "Then stay in bed," Carly chuckled softly while walking to the door. "I'll be outside watching the sun come up." Strawberry grunted unhappily, pulled the pillow against her chest, and curled into a ball. Carly smiled warmly. Strawberry was almost as cute as Cyan was sexy. Carly threw on the oversized button-down shirt she'd borrowed from Bruno before sitting in on last night's kiddie shift. It looked like a calf-length dress on her. The sleeves had to be rolled up pretty far just for her hands and wrists to poke out the ends. She opened the door and stopped dead in her tracks. There was a hover tank parked next to the brewery, with its barrel pointed toward the apartment building. "Hey, Strawberry, stay put, please," Carly said. "There's a tank out front." "Oh, I'm sorry," she said as she sat up. "It showed up a little while after we got home. I guess I kinda deactivated the weapon core and forgot about it." "Well, at least they respect me enough to send a tank," Carly giggled. "What kind is it?" "I don't know, and neither does the tank." Strawberry sounded embarrassed. "I sorta deleted the weapon core recognition table. I'm just a hacker. It's nothing a tech couldn't fix in a few seconds. I'm guessing it's there for the intimidation factor. They would have fixed it by now if they had any intention of actually using it." "You would have been great to have around when we got stuck in my Tejmare's secret cavern," Carly said before realizing exactly how Strawberry would interpret that. "Invite me to play with you in her secret cavern sometime, and I'll bring extra lube," Strawberry grinned. "And there's that sex drive again." Carly smirked. "I saw that picture of you too," Strawberry teased. "She's hot." "Stop that," Carly blushed. "I think I found your weakness," Strawberry said while getting dressed. "Really?" Carly snickered. "I consider her a source of strength." "That's not what I meant," Strawberry said while sliding on her running shoes. "No heels," Carly pouted playfully. "Not today," Strawberry replied. "Some of us like to keep our feet flat on the ground." "Wait a minute, can you walk like normal people?" Carly chided. I don't like feeling anchored to the ground. It reduces my reaction time. The sun had already crested the horizon by the time Strawberry was done getting dressed. Hopefully this wouldn't be Carly's only chance to catch the sunrise. The next dawn on Erosha was a little over 2 galactic standard days away. She hadn't received any further updates from Ujaran or Lilac. Early morning or not, it was unusually quiet. Carly knew Cletheria was on its way, but there had been no announcements, travel advisories, or even a mention on the local IS feeds. Jax must be busy suppressing the information to prevent a panic among the local population. Carly couldn't feel any presences within the tank while walking past with Strawberry on their way toward the containment building. She needed to pick up a few things. She needed to get in contact with a government official. They must have decided something by now. Hopefully the guards could help with that. Assuming they still had some posted. The Cletherian Empire and its queen had been shrouded in mystery for millions of years. It was composed of a multitude of uncatalogued species which could explain some of the inconsistencies, but someone had to be suppressing reliable information. Thalu cut the original queen's mark out of her head on Corbahani's orders, but it was listed as an unknown mass. The alien gland regenerated when Kivaza consumed the changeling mutation core, but had changed significantly in the process. The surgery on Samari would have to rely on Thalu's medical scans. When the edited conversation from last night was transmitted, anyone who didn't understand what made a person eligible to be a queen should believe Carly had stepped down and declared Samari the new queen. They were banking on nobody knowing what a queen's mark actually was, and Carly's sister souls should be the only people alive who know what it looks like. The Kulani Dominion couldn't afford to wait too long. The horde would keep coming until Carly gave them new instructions. As long as the major players wanted the Cletherian queen on their side, Samari should be safe. All she had to do was refuse to take sides in any upcoming conflicts. So much of their plans were dependent on Samari's survival. The surgery wasn't scheduled to start for a few more hours. She retained the Lady Darkseid title hoping they'd see it as an indication she may be willing to work with them. By this point, the Kulani Dominion should have learned to work with Carly instead of continuing to make an enemy of her. Strawberry squeezed her hand as they rounded a corner and the containment area doors came into view. There were no normal guards in sight, the doors were wide open, the only visible light was through the open ceiling, and the parking lot was empty. "Strawberry," Carly said softly, "what can you tell me using that knack of yours?" "I just have a bad feeling," Strawberry said. "The exterior walls block outside signals. I can't feel much from here. All I can tell is the force field is off. It sucks down an insane amount of power when it's active. It's hard to miss." "Do you mind sitting by the fountain while I go in to take a look?" Carly asked. "I'm just here to get my armor and sword belt. If you have any problems, just call my name and I'll come running." "Okay," Strawberry said, "but if I feel them turn on the field, I'm coming in." "Just be careful," Carly insisted. "I want to keep your abilities a secret for as long as we can." "I have one condition," Strawberry smiled. "Start calling me by my name." "Sato?" Carly asked. "No, that's my family name," Strawberry said firmly. "Call me Cho. I'll have to come up with a mnemonic device to remember your name," Carly smirked. "Cho and Tell," Strawberry shrugged. "That'll work," Carly laughed softly. "I'll be right back." Carly followed the stairs up to the open doorway and peered inside. Something felt wrong. The furniture had been moved, the bed most of all. A three-man crew was tearing up part of the stonework flooring on the right side of the outer ring. They'd obviously discovered that she'd come up with a way to disable and reactivate the knack suppression field. Someone wearing a long robe was standing nearby giving direction to the laborers, with someone standing guard diagonally behind them. Carly couldn't feel any of their minds. For that matter, She couldn't sense anything within a roughly 10 to 15-foot radius of the guard. Kali refocused her eyes and tried to focus on the robed person's guard. A spherical area around them seemed to be blocking out all mystical energies. From Kayla's old memories, she knew exactly who she was looking at. That field around him would cancel any knack-based abilities. He was not just a null. He was a true null. It would be skill against skill, and Shiva had been the top-ranked assassin in Keralis for a long time. Even with proper armor, weapons, and toxins loaded into her venom sac, she doubted she could beat him in a fight. If they were looking for a way to intimidate her, they'd found it. There was no point trying to walk silently or using any abilities to suppress her presence. Kali took a deep breath and stepped into the room. She headed straight toward her dresser, trying to ignore the repair team. As she got closer, it was clear the person wearing the long robe was a brown-furred Lupian, but Kali refused to look at the group directly. She already felt like she was being watched, so why not? Kali started unbuttoning Bruno's shirt as she crossed over the metal band of the field projector. She headed over to collect her armor first. "Is that Bruger's work?" a male accented voice with an odd cadence said while she was putting on her pants. "Was that?" Kali glanced towards Shiva and the Lupian woman, and answered, "I bought it from her shop, but I'm not sure who actually does the labor." "It shows in the seams," Shiva said in the same accented voice. "I'm not sure about the rest, but that armored skirt is definitely her stitched work. What material did she use?" Kali was trying to seem relaxed and breezy, but if she ended up having to fight him, was it wise to give him that sort of detail? Then again, with his level of proficiency, did it really matter what it was made of? She picked it out. Kali shrugged as her twin tails slid into the slits on the side of her pant legs. "Regenerative bio something. She said it's the best." "Regenerative biofiber?" Shiva asked. "Is it standard or mutaphasic?" "What's the difference?" Kali asked nervously. "The mutaphasic causes problems for idiots who rely on long-range target assisting gear. It's the mutaphasic," Kali answered, feeling a little more relaxed. "A bit pricey, but a good choice," Shiva noted. "There's nothing more irritating than taking a hit from someone who can't even aim on their own." Kali started putting on her top. "I just trusted Bruger's expertise. I haven't really had the chance to test it out yet." "Biofiber is pointless if you don't wear it more often," the Lupian woman said, then smirked. "I probably shouldn't." "I'm sure letting her know the fit of biofiber improves the more often you wear it will give her a real advantage in negotiations," Shiva said in a tone laden with sarcasm. "Well, that's a relief," Kali sighed. "I was worried they called you here to deal with me." "To help them deal with you would be more accurate," Shiva snickered. "I'm just hoping this doesn't take too long. It's a 3-hour jump home from here, and there's a fishing pole waiting for my return." "I heard you were missing," Kali asked while making final adjustments to her suit and sliding her black tail under the armored skirt. "They may be missing me," Shiva snorted, "but the only thing I'm missing are the fish. Is it safe to talk around the workers?" Kali asked the Lupian. "Do they know who you are?" "Dismiss them," Shiva said softly before the woman could answer. "Finish measuring the damage to the Mystrium and take a break," the woman ordered. "I'll contact you when we are done with our negotiations." "Yes, one of the workers said. "There may be a way to repair the ring without fabricating a replacement. I'd be happy to look into it further during your meeting, if you're willing to pay us for the research time." "Agreed," the Lupian smiled toothily. The workers took a few final measurements before heading out. Kali strapped on her weapon belt around her waist and put back on her shoes while they were finishing up. "Shiva," the Lupian said, "if you don't mind." "Not too close," Kali said swiftly as Shiva began to approach. "The collective sensed my distress, they found me, and came to help me. I don't know what they'll do if the connection between us is broken again." Shiva stopped with Kali just beyond his knack negation field. You claim to be their queen, the woman said with a note of cynicism. Don't they obey your will? I was supposed to be learning how to communicate with them and earning their trust. I'm Kivasa. Kayla's soul met with the old queen, not mine. You kept me confined too long. The only choice you've left me is to declare Kayla the rightful queen, Kali said with feigned annoyance. If her soul hadn't been separated from mine during the Xinan attack, there wouldn't be any way to stop them from going on rampage. Once I'm confident in the safety of myself and my sister soul's new host, I'll pass her the reins and go back to just being Lady Darkseid, unless you insist in stripping me of my remaining title. I'll be hunting down and killing Ayuku Ha with or without it. I see why Lilac said you talked too freely in her initial report, the woman quipped. Do you have a name? Kali asked. If you expect me to call you Mistress Kulani while you're not wearing Hijit's raiment, I'll have to insist you call me Princess Kivasa. Not Lady Darkseid, the Lupian chuckled. That's a title that can be taken from me, but I'll always be the last princess of Eldarin. I'd prefer to be called Kali, and you are? Maze, the woman answered calmly. I asked Ujaran to bring me pictures of Mistress Kulani. I think he knows. If you were honest with me from the beginning, you could have told me it was a secret. I would have helped you keep it. Oh, and I'm sorry about your mother. What about my mother? Maze bristled. You're the spitting image of her when she was your age, Kali said, except for your blind eye. That's one of La Bath's, isn't it? Maze looked like she'd just been slapped. The cybernetic eye on the robotic half of Shiva's head focused on her. His intact eye lagged a half-second behind. Sorry, Kali said disingenuously. Was that another state secret? Shiva smirked. I'd appreciate it if you don't spread rumors about. Why would I? Kali snickered. Running around making claims I can't prove is a horrible way to build trust. Not as bad as inviting someone to visit your homeworld, then threatening to put them in a planet-wide shooting gallery if they don't consent to being put in isolation. You were deemed a threat to the Dominion, May said in a deliberately formal tone. The anger buried beneath her words was hard to miss. The approaching fleet doesn't do much to change my opinion. Your denial of responsibility strains credibility. Kali studied her. She knew nothing about her opponent in this verbal sparring match. Maze was fairly new to her position, but what sort of person was she? There was no way to know how personally involved she'd been in any of the decisions that had been made since the arrival of Lady Darkseid. Kali expected answering the most obvious question right off would set her at ease, but she still seemed guarded. You came here because of the fleet, Kali sighed emphatically. I was hoping for a more relaxed conversation, but since that seems unlikely, would you be willing to tell me what happened to Syntholo? Tyrell had filled her in last night on everything he and Prask had discovered. Kali knew the answer, but wanted to put Maze's honesty to the test. His punishment was handled quietly, Maze said. Maze, Shiva scolded. Who's she talking about and what's the harm in answering? A male like her. Kali scowled. Apparently your kind isn't too welcome in these parts, Shiva. Kali's frustration had gotten the better of her. She regretted her words, but not much. I was cautioned that you're petulant, manipulative, and vindictive, Maze said irritably. I'll have to add your resentment of our culture to the list. Ladies, Shiva said in a surly, domineering tone, I was asked to come here to prevent a fight, so that's what I'm gonna do. 2 couches, 2 women. Pick one, and sit the fuck down. Kali sat on the couch closest to her dresser. Maze began. Sitting down, Shiva interrupted angrily. Maze didn't look happy, but she followed his direction. It was clear she'd grown too accustomed to being in a position of authority. Friction between a princess and a mistress, Shiva said in a voice laden with sarcasm. Who would have seen that coming? Carly giggled. Maze scowled. Maze's main concern was all those ships. Carly says they won't listen to her. She's going to step down so a more competent queen can take care of it. No offense. None taken, Carly shrugged. As long as that fleet turns around, who cares why? Shiva snickered. The only concern voiced by Carly is about some guy. What's the harm in telling her, Maze? He broke a vow of chastity with her, Maze balked. That's why he was punished to begin with. She cost us one of our best scouts. A scout that was a virtual exile, Carly snorted. Shiva held up his hand to silence Maze's objections. He was steadfast, loyal, and loved being a citizen of a nation that hardly ever allowed him to come home. I wanted to say something on his behalf, but instead you locked me up in here. I think my resentment is well deserved, and that's far from the only grievance I have, Carly said while restraining her rage. It's not easy to be cordial with someone who demands respect, but offers none in return. Shiva watched her silently as Carly seethed with rage. He could stop her if she lost control, and they all knew it. Syntholo boasted about how wise and just Mistress Kulani is. I was so jealous whenever he spoke of her. He took so much pride in being honored by her. It breaks my heart. He came here willing to take any punishment Mistress Kulani passed down. He told me he actually hoped to have his testicles removed, just so he couldn't let her down again. I'm just glad he'll never know that the Mistress Kulani that betrayed his lifetime of devotion was not the same one he worshipped his entire life. Carly lowered her voice and slowed her breathing. Maybe your mother was everything he told me she was. I wish I'd met her instead of you. I'm being blamed for the predicted fall of your empire. Did anyone stop to wonder why? Carly glared at Maze and asked, whose bright idea was it to send me through Xynon territory? Who betrayed Syntholo? Who locked me up? Who refused to tell the Fellowship why Cletheria was attacking them? Who stopped me from attempting to prevent the Loctarian genocide? Who has decided not to let me negotiate peace between Cletheria and the Ginnans? For that matter, who kept me from contacting my children? Tell me, if your nation falls, who's really at fault? Call me a catalyst all you want. From my perspective, Mistress Kulani fell from grace long before I arrived. I'm just a spotlight you can't hide from. Feeling better now? Shiva asked. A little, Carly admitted. I'm not, Maze growled. You're not listening or helping, Shiva said while thumping the top of Maze's snout. Hey, Maze squawked, don't do that. I'm not a kid anymore. Prove it, Shiva mocked. Maze lowered her head. Shiva turned his attention to Carly and asked, what was that about children? Zargalteam twins, Carly said. I adopted them. They were Nadrok refugees. I feel for you, Shiva said sorrowfully. I had two with my first wife. Someone broke into their house, killed all three of them. They laid in wait for me to get home. I lost half my face, most of an arm and a leg. I survived, not that I wanted to. He took a labored breath before continuing. My current family is completely off the books. An adopted daughter and her mother. I kept them at a safe distance. It tore me up inside, but it kept them alive. The point is, you do what you feel you have to, learn from the things you regret, keep moving forward, and, for fuck's sake, don't take yourself so damn seriously. The fish won't care who you are. You and those damn fish, Maze laughed. Have you gotten a chance to talk with your... Well, if they're Zargalteam, they can't be that little, Shiva chuckled softly. Yes, Carly smiled warmly, while I was spending the night at Strawberry's place. How are they? He asked. Better now, I think. They've been feeling like they were orphaned twice, Carly said sadly. Shiva watched Maze quietly. What? Maze said. How would I know she had kids? A little empathy helps, Shiva smirked. I know Syntholo mentioned them in his reports, and I doubt he's the only one, Kali scoffed. Don't you read them? Not personally, Maze shrugged. I get briefed on important developments, and get summaries every few days. Are you serious? Kali asked in disbelief. Are you a leader or just a figurehead? Do you even know what Syntholo's punishment was? Of course, I do, Maze scoffed. We even permitted him to choose where he was going to be exiled to, but that's classified. Not to mention irrelevant, Kali smirked. He's not there anymore. Try a less obvious bluff next time, Maze rolled her eyes. If anyone reviewed our ship log, you'd know Syntholo and I stopped there on the way to your Zynon ambush. I know where the moon is. The entire population of that moon was relocated by force. You did what? Maze sounded outraged. I asked Gaurun to send personnel and supplies to train the indigenous population, so they'd be prepared when the echelons supplement their plague-depleted population in the most logical and obvious way possible. I'd imagine Syntholo chose that world so he could help with that. He does feel some responsibility to the inhabitants. Shiva made an odd sound in his throat, interrupting Kali before she could add a barb to her commentary. Kali smiled innocently at Shiva. If you already knew all this, Maze began. It was a simple test. I wanted to know if I could trust you, Kali grumbled. Obviously, I can't. I think that concludes this discussion. Have Lilac contact me after you've reviewed her latest reports, or in 3 days after you've gotten your summaries. Kali stood and started for the door while continuing to speak. For more on the Cletharian situation, you may want to pay personal attention to Jack's next report. There won't be one, Maze said angrily. What? Kali asked as she spun around to face them. He's been dismissed from duty, Maze said in disgust. He won't be returning. I spoke with Lilac yesterday. She told me all about what he put you through. I'm still deciding what charges he'll be facing. I don't know if this will make any difference, Kali said as she started back toward the couch, but if he didn't upset me so much, I doubt the Horde would have noticed me. What did he say? Maze said through her teeth. Let me bring up my chat log, Kali said while sitting back down. Shiva looked curious, but Maze was fuming with rage and wasn't even attempting to hide it. Let's see, Kali recited. Your request is about to be denied. The decision isn't final yet. I can put my thumb on the scales if we can come to an arrangement. Maze blinked twice, slowly, and asked, what request? I'm not sure which one. I made a few. They should be in Lilac's recent reports. However, Strawberry needs new, secure, accommodations. I was hoping you'd return at least some of the money you took from me. I was thinking of buying the abandoned hotel next door to turn into free temporary housing for non-citizens who get stranded here, or locals who fall on hard times. Maybe coordinate with whatever local departments you have to help people in situations like that so they don't get sent to Gamaro work camps. What money? Maze said through barred teeth. The money you siphoned from my account the day I arrived, Kali said cautiously. The same one I was assigned when I was given the title Lady Darkseid. Maze turned to look at Shiva. Don't look at me, he snickered. I'm not on the local security network. I can't send or receive messages in here either. Ask V. She should know. Make sure she doesn't go anywhere, Maze said while stalking off to make a call. She's too used to giving people orders, Kali grumbled. When was the last time she did a service shift? So, Gaurun's helping you out, Shiva redirected. I haven't heard from him since Labath's death. Kali wasn't sure what to say. Hadn't anyone told Shiva that they'd cloned Labath? She was worried about how he'd react. It seemed safer to stay on topic. I really don't know. I've only been able to send him a message once since getting here. I think it was back while everyone was panicking about Aspis. He's rough around the edges, but reliable, Shiva chuckled softly. Then again, Druoj aren't known for their conversational skills. He owes me for dealing with Korbahani, Kali said with a shrug. I'd rather have Gaurun working with me than against me. I haven't been in the loop for a while, Shiva said. What do you mean? What did that old serpent do? He refused to hand leadership over to Gaurun, and nobody was willing to put him in his place, Kali shrugged. So, I took care of it. Really? Shiva said while looking her up and down. I'll have to remember not to underestimate you. It's about time someone did, Kali snickered. To be completely honest, his arrogance did more to defeat him than I could have on my own. Was that humility I just heard? Shiva teased. Nope, Kali laughed. Just more honesty. Maze walked back over to the inner ring. Shiva, Maze asked apprehensively, how would you feel about coming back in a day or two? I'd like more time to look into this. When will that fleet get here? Shiva asked scornfully, and how much of the planet will be left if someone gets twitchy? There's no way I'm taking that risk. You've met Cindy. I'd rather face off against 1,000,000 Cletharians than get on her bad side. All they can do is kill me. Kali giggled. How about we handle this a little differently? Shiva said with a crooked grin. Drop all the posturing and adversarial tiara measuring contests, and let me take you both to brunch at Penumbra Buffet. We should handle this in private, Maze insisted. Funny thing about that, Shiva grinned, people tend to be more agreeable when there are neutral observers, and having a full belly helps too. I don't want to leave Strawberry alone. I asked for her to wait out front and call for me if she has any. Kali turned her head toward the door as she spoke. There was no sign of her pink-haired friend. She's gone. Hang on, Kali said as she sprinted toward the doorway, while telekinetically reducing her weight and manipulating the wind to propel herself forward even faster. She received a message just as she stepped outside. She opened it and sighed with relief. Everything okay? Maze asked as she approached the door with Shiva at her side. Yeah. Ujaran had picked up Strawberry to take her out for breakfast. That's too bad, Shiva said. They could have joined us. I didn't agree to that, Maze grumbled. The shuttle is on its way now, Shiva said while eyeing Maze. Let's get the unpleasantness out of the way before our ride gets here, Maze said solemnly. You were being given a stipend whenever a universal cipher was sold. While you were in the containment zone, your stipend pay account information was changed. That wasn't me, Kali said firmly. You made a purchase at a chocolate specialty shop after you arrived, then half of your remaining balance was transferred out of the account a little later, Maze noted. Those are legitimate, Kali said. Thought so, Maze quipped. It's hard to take half when you don't know the balance. What happened to the rest? Kali asked. There was a string of additional purchases listed. 100 Galcred each, all paid to different account numbers. It looks like those accounts were created and closed just before and after each payment, Maze said. You were being detained, so we know those weren't you. Unfortunately, we have no way to track or recover those funds. Sounds like a cyberpath to me, Shiva grumbled. Probably the same one who made himself the new payee of her stipend, but we can't prove it. Jax, Kali sneered. Are you telling me that he treated me like crap and paid for me to get sex training using my own money? Without hard evidence, I can't say anything definitively, Maze said, but it sure looks like it. We're going to have to assign you a new ID chip linked to a new account and link it as your stipend pay account, Maze grumbled. Like I said, I need more time. You're still due one unpaid stipend payment. We've put it on hold until we get this mess sorted out. We had no idea Jax was embezzling funds from you. The shuttle was approaching. You two will have to finish this discussion at brunch, Shiva said. I've used the temporary account access keys before. The ones that wrap around your finger. Can't we just link an account to something like that? Carly asked. A chipped bracelet or ring, and release the payment to that? I'd like to look into buying that old hotel before someone else does. It's been for sale since I was a pup, Maze said dismissively. There's an orbital cannon aimed at the building next to it. Nobody's willing to buy it. Why was it closed? Carly asked as the shuttle landed in the parking lot. I don't really know, Maze answered. Carly boarded first so she could sit as far from Shiva as possible. Shiva helped Maze onto the shuttle and sat silently until they lifted off. Someone failed the popcorn test, he whispered once they'd taken off. When was this? Maze asked. It was round about a century ago, he shrugged. They killed it from orbit. It was all over the news. I doubt many remember it now. There was some big event that weekend. They had, around 250 rooms, all booked up. Between their guests, former guests, and their families, its rating dropped from 6 to 3 stars in a matter of hours, and was under 2 by the next morning. The hotel's business died almost as quick as that changeling did. That's all, Carly snickered. It sounds perfect for what I have in mind. Do a search for famous hotel collapses sometime. It's in the top 3, but the worst one was a resort that got sucked into a caldera. Who'd build a hotel on a volcano? Maze scoffed. They didn't, Shiva grinned. Nobody knew it was there. It had been inactive for millions of years. Where are we going? Carly asked nervously as the shuttle exited the atmosphere. The top of the world, Shiva chuckled. It's dead center polar north, Maze added. This is the fastest, most reliable way to get there. It's a 15-minute warp flight from the capital. Relax, Shiva snickered. If we kill you now, who's going to tell your friends to go home? Maze spread her fingers and stared down at her right palm. They sat in silence as Carly looked out the window at the enormous planet below. Even from orbit, she could see the vastness of the civilization on the surface. Over 16 billion registered citizens, an average population of 13 billion. I just thought you should get a feel for what you're sacrificing your queenship for. I've made a few friends here, despite being locked up most of the time, Carly said. My issues are with the government and the way I've been treated, not with the people. Other than the 21 you brutally murdered, Maze snorted. I guess that was an important development, Carly rolled her eyes. I hope they told you why it happened. Just be quiet, I'm trying to read. Maze snorted. Carly smiled smugly while she waited. A moment after the shuttle began to re-enter the atmosphere, Maze growled, "This is going to be a nightmare." What's wrong? Shiva asked. There were a dozen reports filed on that one incident, and there are some serious contradictions. Read Ujaran's first, Carly suggested. He knows how to get my attention. We talked telepathically when the guards came under attack. Then check each of the guards. They'll vary based on their perspective. Then check Lilac's account against their reports. If there are any major conflicts, ask her to submit a new report. Wait, that's 6. Who else submitted reports? Jack's orbital surveillance log. That's pretty cut and dry. Rooker. She's had it in for me for a while. I wouldn't trust hers. I didn't think she was involved at all. That leaves 4, Carly interjected. The head of Index Heights Hotel Security, 2 from the personnel who had to deal with the aftermath, and a supplemental report from the Masculinity security team that your friend Ujaran attached to his report, Maze grumbled. I'm going to have to ask Lilac to resubmit her report. I think I understand why Ujaran has stood me up to do paperwork. It sounds like he was really thorough. I had no idea there were so many reports for one event, Carly said sympathetically. I think I owe you an apology. I heard you made VIP patties, Shiva snickered. Of course, there are loads of reports. Whenever you hear team, department head, or supervisor, they're already consolidated. Take a look at raw decrypted IS data sometime. You'll feel like your eyes are bleeding pretty quick. Can we skip to the point? Maze asked while flashing him a sidelong glance, turned her attention to Carly, and said, he's old enough to have a long meandering parable for everything. You get used to it after a while. Some things aren't worth doing without a reliable team, Shiva smirked. I've been very selective who I allow in my inner circle, Carly said, and was immediately grateful she hadn't brought Strawberry along. Sounds nice, Maze grumbled. I inherited my position and the infrastructure that supports it. Your mother was a good housekeeper, Shiva said, but that requires being more proactive. I haven't been at this long, Carly said, but I've already had to cut someone loose. I had him sent on one final mission, as one last chance to prove he could be useful. He failed. Last night, one of my people told me he's working on a salvage ship now. Maze sighed. The shuttle continued its descent. The Penumbra buffet was built on a mountaintop, with 2 landing pads on top of the rounded building. The windows were angled so customers could watch the progression of the lesser moon's 6-hour orbit. I'm not sure I could do that, Maze said after some consideration. Some of these people have had these jobs longer than I've been alive. I wouldn't have guessed you could be soft-hearted, Carly quipped. Shiva watched Maze for a moment. Make up some useless middle management position where they can't cause problems and tell them it's a promotion, if it'll ease your conscience. But either way, surrounding yourself with people you can't trust is like setting up camp in a phalanx den. You'll end up with bite marks on your ass. The orbit of the lesser moon was only a couple degrees above the planet's northern tropic. The moon looked so much larger and closer while standing on the landing pad. The restaurant had 2 shuttles which were dispatched to retrieve and return customers. It was expensive and rather exclusive. After walking down the stairwell and into the building, soft music flowed all around them. There was a small orchestra pit in the middle of the room. The tables were far enough apart to offer a level of privacy for a party of up to 8. It was plain, yet elegant. There were buttons set into the table to let the servers know when they were needed, but otherwise the customers were given their privacy. It was immediately obvious why Shiva had chosen this venue. Carly made frequent trips to the buffet to sample the assorted delicacies. The form of manipulation employed by Shiva was subtle and effective. He gently redirected the conversation while sneaking in pearls of wisdom. Carly had a more difficult time suppressing her anxiety as the discussion proceeded and the time of Samari's operation drew nearer. Carly's stripes began to itch. Even if something went wrong, Carly knew what she had to say to the Cletherians to ensure their withdrawal. She wasn't sure why, but she had the feeling something was about to go horribly wrong. If everything had gone to plan, Samari and Oleander should have arrived on the surface of Hyrule roughly 3 hours ago. Carly wondered how their day had gone.